The sun hadn't fully risen over Philadelphia on that humid June morning in 2025, but the air already clung to the skin, heavy with an 80-degree shore stickiness that made every breath feel like a sip of warm soup. Inside Iron Forge MMA, a cinderblock fortress tucked in the shadow of South Philly's row houses. The atmosphere was no less intense. The gym was a cathedral of grit, its walls scarred from years of sweat and ambition, the floor layered with rubber mats that smelled of liniment and old leather. A faded 2008 Rocky Balboa movie poster, its edges curling like a boxer's taped knuckles, hung taped to the wall, a silent nod to the city's underdog soul. From a cracked Bluetooth speaker in the corner, Drake's latest track thumped, its bass vibrating through the clatter of 45-pound weight plates and the rhythmic thud of gloves smacking heavy bags. Gatorade bottles, some half-empty, littered a folding table near the entrance, their neon colors catching the flicker of fluorescent lights. This was no boutique fitness studio with smoothie bars and selfies. It was a proving ground, where egos sparred as fiercely as fists, and only the loudest seemed to survive. Into this cauldron stepped a man who didn't belong, or so it seemed, at 5 feet 11 inches and 175 pounds. He was lean, but unremarkable, his frame swallowed by a worn black hoodie zipped to the collarbone. His black training pants, scuffed at the knees, whispered of countless hours on mats or sets, though no one here knew which. A black baseball cap sat low on his brow, casting a shadow over his face, hiding a faint scar that ran like a whisper across his left cheek, a memento, perhaps of a stunt gone wrong years ago. His gym bag, slung over one shoulder, bore a faded patch that read Hollywood Fight Club, its stitching frayed but proud, hinting at a past tied to combat or cinema, or maybe both. He moved with a quiet purpose, each step deliberate, as if he'd already mapped the room's corners in his mind. No one noticed him at first, not amid the chaos of the 6A class winding down, where fighters grunted through burpees and coaches barked corrections over the din. "Can I help you?" The receptionist, a 20-something named Mia, with a nose ring and a bored drawl, barely looked up from her phone, her thumbs scrolling through X-posts. Her voice carried the dismissive edge of someone used to sizing up newcomers and finding them wanting. "Looking for a trial," the man replied, his tone low, measured, without a hint of flair. "Name?" she asked, fingers hovering over her tablet. "K. Charles," he said, without hesitation. She raised an eyebrow. "First name?" He offered a polite smile, the kind that gave nothing away. "Just K." Her eyes flicked up, meeting his for a moment, but the cap's brim swallowed any chance of recognition. She shrugged, tapping the screen. "Beginners grappling. Room B. Starts in 10. He nodded and moved toward the mats, his steps silent against the scuffed linoleum, unnoticed by the pack of fighters flexing for mirrors and trading boasts over protein shakes. Iron Forge MMA was a crucible for Philadelphia's up-and-coming fighters, a place where testosterone hung thicker than the humidity, and shirts were optional, but egos were mandatory. The gym pulsed with a culture of bravado, where every jab thrown was a statement, every rep a claim to dominance. In this world, the man called K. Charles was an anomaly, too quiet, too plain, too uninterested in the spotlight. That alone made him a target. Across the mats, Ryan Blaze Turner, the gym's undisputed king, clocked him immediately. At 6 feet 3 inches and 230 pounds, Ryan was a chiseled monument to his own legend, a regional MMA champ with a 15-0 record and a custom rash guard that screamed his nickname in red flames. His tattoos gleamed with sweat as he leaned against a chain-link divider, his entourage orbiting like moths around a streetlight. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he watched the newcomer, his disdain as sharp as the one he reserved for cardio bros and YouTube wannabes. "Check out the old-timer," he muttered to his buddy, Jake, a wiry striker with a fresh black eye. Bet he wandered in thinking this was a senior stretch class. Jake snickered, loud enough to turn heads. But Charles didn't flinch, his hands adjusting the straps of his 16-ounce gloves, black, worn, but spotless, brought from home, not borrowed from the gym's flashy rack. Ryan cracked his knuckles. His voice carrying that casual edge meant to cut. "Yo, Pops. You lost yogas down on Broad Street, big mirrors, soft mats, lots of breathing." Laughter rippled through the gym, a few younger fighters joining in, their protein shakes sloshing in their hands. Charles glanced up, just for a second, his eyes unreadable under the cap's shadow. "No problem," he said simply, stepping aside from the heavy bag he'd been using. The indifference, the calm, it grated on Ryan like sandpaper. He tossed a 20-pound medicine ball underhand, letting it thud at Charles's feet. "Catch," he grinned. "Good for the joints at your age." More chuckles, but not everyone laughed. Sarah, a 130-pound bantamweight with a ponytail and a dream of going pro, paused mid-stretch, her eyes lingering on the newcomer. "He's got that Philly underdog vibe," she whispered to a friend, "like Rocky stepping into Mickey's gym." Her words hung in the air, unnoticed by Ryan, who was already planning his next move to keep the spotlight. What no one knew, not Ryan, not Jake, not even Mia at the desk, was why Charles was there. He told Mia he was getting back to basics, a phrase that could mean anything: a new film role, a personal quest, or maybe a quiet redemption after a decade away from the mats. The scar on his cheek, the faded patch on his bag, the precision in his stretches, they hinted at a man who'd fought before, not just for sport, but for something deeper. This was Philadelphia, after all, the city of underdogs, where legends were born not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of gyms like this. As Charles moved toward Room B, his silence louder than the gym's noise. The stage was set for a clash, not just of fists, but of ego against humility, noise against stillness, in a city that revered those who rose without shouting. Iron Forge MMA was more than a gym. It was a crucible where egos clashed louder than the 45-pound plates slamming onto the rubber mats. Tucked in Philadelphia's South Side, the cinderblock walls bore the scars of 1,000 sparring sessions. The air thick with the sharp tang of liniment and sweat, amplified by the relentless 80-degree of humidity that clung to every surface. Fighters moved like gladiators under the flickering fluorescent lights, their shirtless torsos gleaming, each jab and squat a bid for dominance. Gatorade bottles, neon blue and orange, rolled across a folding table, some toppled by the vibrations of a cracked Bluetooth speaker blasting Drake's latest anthem. A faded 2008 Rocky Balboa poster watched over the chaos, its edges curling like a fighter's resolve, a reminder of Philly's underdog heart. This was no place for the timid here. Noise was currency, and silence was suspect. Ryan Blaze Turner, the gym's reigning king at 6 feet 3 inches and 230 pounds, thrived in this arena. His custom rash guard, emblazoned with red flames, hugged his chiseled frame, his tattoos glistening as he flexed for the mirrors. At 29, Ryan was a regional MMA champ with a 15-0 record, but the rise of younger fighters' kids landing cleaner kicks and drawing bigger crowds gnawed at him. His eyes darted to a 20-year-old prospect shadowboxing in the corner, and his jaw tightened. To stay on top, Ryan needed a target, someone to remind the gym who ruled. Charles, the quiet newcomer, was perfect. "Yo, Grandpa, yoga's down on Broad Street," Ryan called, his voice slicing through the din. His buddy Jake, A wiry 165-pound striker with a fresh black eye egged him on, smirking. Bet he's here for senior Zumba. The gym erupted in laughter, heads turning, protein shakes sloshing in hands. The taunt echoed off the walls. But K. Charles didn't blink. Keanu, listed as K. Charles on the sign-up sheet, moved through the chaos like a ghost. At 175 pounds, his lean frame didn't scream fighter, but his movements told a different story. His 16-ounce gloves, black leather relics he'd brought himself, slapped the heavy bag with a rhythm too precise for a beginner. Worn, but spotless. They matched the faded Hollywood Fight Club patch on his gym bag, a hint of a past sparring with legends. Maybe on a film set or in a dojo long forgotten. His footwork was a study in economy, each pivot and shuffle deliberate, as if he'd danced this dance before. When Ryan played his first prank, swapping Keanu's water bottle with one spiked with gritty protein powder, Keanu noticed the chalky residue but said nothing. He rinsed it under the gym's rusty faucet, his face unreadable under the low brim of his black baseball cap. "This guy, think he's a monk," Jake snorted, tossing a towel over his shoulder. Ryan's grin widened, but Keanu's silence was a wall, unshaken, infuriating. The gym's culture fed on Ryan's bravado, but not everyone bought in. Sarah, a 130-pound bantamweight with a scar on her knuckle from her last amateur fight, initially joined the laughter, her ponytail bouncing as she worked the speed bag. She was chasing her first pro bout, her Philly grit pushing her through grueling sessions. But by day 3, she paused, her eyes catching Keanu's footwork as he slipped around the bag like a boxer. Not a novice. "He's got moves," she muttered to her sparring partner. "Lisa," her voice low but curious, like he's been in a real ring. Lisa shrugged, wiping sweat from her brow. But Sarah kept watching, her instincts tingling. Jamal, a 15-year-old gym kid who trailed Sarah like a puppy, overheard and grinned wide. "Yo, Kay's the chillest old dude ever," he said, his voice cracking with excitement. "Like a ninja grandpa or some John Wick shit." His words, half joking, cut through the gym's testosterone haze, bringing a spark of warmth that made a few fighters chuckle. Not mockingly, but with a flicker of respect. Coach Elena, a 55-year-old ex-kickboxer with a buzz cut and a nose broken twice in the 90s, watched from the sidelines, her arms crossed. She'd trained champs and seen every kind of fighter cocky, broken, hungry. But Charles was different. His scar, barely visible under the cap's shadow, tugged at her memory. "I know that face," she whispered to herself, her eyes narrowing as Keanu reset after a drill. His hands steady, his breathing even. She'd seen that kind of calm before, in fighters who didn't need to shout to prove they'd survived wars. When Ryan upped the ante, assigning Keanu a mismatched partner, a 260-pound rookie, who shoved too hard during a grappling drill, Keanu absorbed the push, rolled to his feet, and reset without a word. The gym's laughter faded for a moment, replaced by a few raised eyebrows. Sarah nudged Lisa. "Told you. He's no rookie." Jamal, bouncing on his toes, added, "Bet he's got stories, man." Ryan's pranks grew bolder, each one a bid to crack Keanu's calm. During a sweltering 90-degree of conditioning session, he unplugged Keanu's fan, leaving him drenched in sweat, but still shadowboxing, unfazed. "What's with this guy?" Ryan muttered, his smirk faltering. The gym's noise, grunts, thuds. Drake's bass kept rolling, but Keanu's silence was louder, a challenge Ryan couldn't ignore. By the end of the week, the taunts weren't just jokes, they were a performance. And Charles was the unwilling star. As tension thickened in Philly's toughest proving ground, the stage was set for a reckoning, one that would test not just strength, but the kind of heart that made legends in a city built on underdogs. The air in Iron Forge MMA grew heavier by the day, not just from the 90-degree of humidity that made every breath feel like swallowing steam, but from the mounting tension that crackled like static across the rubber mats. The gym, a gritty shrine to Philadelphia's underdog spirit, pulsed with the clatter of 45-pound plates and the thud of gloves against bags, all underscored by the faint hum of Drake's beats from a battered speaker. A faded 2008 Rocky Balboa poster gazed down, its presence a silent testament to the city's love for those who fought against the odds. But in this arena, odds were set by Ryan Blaze Turner, the 230-pound MMA champ whose reign was built on noise and dominance. At 6 feet 3 inches, Ryan strutted through the gym, his custom rash guard flashing red flames, his tattoos slick with sweat. His insecurity, gnawing beneath the bravado, drove him to tighten his grip on the spotlight. Charles, the quiet newcomer, was his chosen target, a man whose silence mocked Ryan's need for applause. Ryan's campaign to break him escalated, each move a calculated jab to assert control. Ryan's tactics grew bolder, designed to humiliate. During a grappling drill, he paired Charles with a 260-pound rookie, a lumbering kid named TJ who shoved too hard, his bulk sending Keanu sprawling across the mat. The gym roared with laughter. Jake, Ryan's wiry 165-pound sidekick, leading the chorus. "Careful. Pops, don't break a hip," Ryan called, arms crossed, his grin sharp as a blade. Keanu, at 175 pounds, rolled to his feet with a fluid grace that silenced a few onlookers. His 16-ounce gloves, worn relics from his own bag, stayed steady as he reset, his face unreadable under the black baseball cap. In a sweltering 90-degree of conditioning session, Ryan upped the ante, yanking the plug from Keanu's fan, leaving him drenched in sweat as he shadowboxed in a stifling corner. The gym's laughter swelled, but Keanu kept moving, his footwork precise, his breathing even. "This guy's a robot," Jake muttered, but Ryan's smirk faltered. Keanu's calm was a wall he couldn't dent. The gym's culture, built on Ryan's showmanship, began to show cracks. Sarah, the 130-pound bantamweight, chasing her first pro bout, had stopped laughing by day 4. Her eyes, sharp from years of reading opponents, locked onto Keanu's footwork as he slipped a phantom jab during bag work. "He's not just some old guy," she whispered to Lisa, her sparring partner, as they stretched near the Rocky poster. "That's boxer movement, like he's fought for real." Lisa shrugged, wiping sweat from her brow. But Sarah's curiosity grew, her Philly grit recognizing a kindred spirit. Jamal, the 15-year-old gym kid who trailed Sarah like a shadow, caught her words and lit up. "Yo, Kay's like a ninja, yo," he said, mimicking Keanu's stretches with exaggerated flair, his skinny frame wobbling. "Bet he's got some John Wick moves hidden." His enthusiasm, half joking, half awestruck, brought a flicker of warmth to the gym's testosterone-charged air, earning a few chuckles from nearby fighters who weren't fully in Ryan's orbit. Coach Elena, the 55-year-old ex-kickboxer with a twice-broken nose, watched from the sidelines, her arms crossed, her buzz cut catching the fluorescent light. She'd seen every kind of fighter in her 3 decades brash, broken, brilliant, but Keanu's scar, barely visible under his cap, tugged at her memory. Late one night, she reviewed grainy gym footage on her laptop, pausing on a frame where Keanu's cap tilted, revealing the scar. "I've seen that face in a ring," she muttered, her mind racing to old boxing tapes or stunt reels from the 90s. Her suspicion deepened when, during a sparring drill, Ryan tested Keanu himself. He lunged for a takedown, his 230-pound frame bearing down. But Keanu slipped free with a half-inch pivot, his wrist redirecting Ryan's momentum like water around a stone. The gym fell silent for a split second, Ryan's eyes narrowing with suspicion. Lucky move, Pops, he said, but his voice lacked its usual bite. Sarah, watching from the sidelines, nudged Lisa. Told you, he's got something. The tension reached a boiling point when a flyer went up on Thursday, taped beside the Rocky poster, Forge Fight Night, Saturday, open sparring. Ryan's face dominated the design, his signature pose, flexing biceps in red ink. It was his stage, a chance to cement his dominance, and Charles was his chosen opponent. Let's see if Pops can handle a real mat, Ryan barked across the gym, pointing at Keanu, who was shadowboxing alone, his movements as steady as a metronome. The gym quieted, ears tilting toward the challenge. Keanu paused, his cap low, then resumed without a word. Ryan strode closer, his 6'3" frame looming. What's the matter? Old man scared your bones won't hold up. A few uneasy laughs followed, but the mood had shifted. Ryan's performance wasn't landing like it used to. Sarah shook her head, her respect for Keanu growing. Jamal, bouncing on his toes, whispered, Ninja's gonna surprise him. That evening, Keanu approached the sign-up board, his pen steady as he wrote K. Charles, open division in clean, deliberate strokes. Elena, behind the desk, watched silently, her eyes tracing the handwriting too precise, too practiced for a nobody. The gym's air felt heavier now, not just from the 90-degree of heat, but from the sense that something was coming, something that would echo Philly's underdog legacy. Ryan's campaign had lit a fuse, but Keanu's silence was the spark. And Iron Forge was about to learn what happened when you underestimated a man who moved like he'd already fought the world's toughest battles. Saturday morning broke crisp and clear over Philadelphia, the 55-degree hot air carrying a bite that sharpened every sense, as if the city itself was bracing for a fight. Iron Forge MMA buzzed with electric anticipation, its cinder-block walls vibrating with the chatter of spectators locals in Eagles hoodies, TikTokers angling for viral clips, and a Philly sports blogger scribbling notes for a clickbait post. The rubber mats gleamed under freshly cleaned lights, and a folding table groaned under stacks of waiver forms, neon Gatorade bottles, and glossy flyers featuring Ryan Blaze Turner's chiseled face. His biceps flexed in red ink. The faded 2008 Rocky Balboa poster on the wall seemed to watch, a silent nod to Philly's underdog soul. Forge Fight Night was Ryan's stage, a chance to cement his dominance as the 230-pound MMA champ. At 6 feet 3 inches, he strutted in a custom rash guard, flames blazing across his chest, hyping the crowd with fist bumps and a booming playlist of Kanye West's latest hits. His entourage, led by Jake, whooped like a pack of hyenas, feeding off his swagger. But all eyes were waiting for one matchup, the one Ryan had orchestrated to crush the quiet newcomer. Charles. Keanu Reeves, still listed as Charles, arrived alone, a shadow slipping through the crowd. At 175 pounds, he was dwarfed by the gym's bravado, his worn black hoodie and scuffed training pants unchanged, his black baseball cap pulled low over the scar on his cheek. His gym bag, with its faded Hollywood Fight Club patch, hung from his shoulder as he moved to a corner, stretching methodically hips, shoulders, wrists, each motion precise, like a ritual honed over decades. Sarah, the 130-pound bantamweight, watched from the sidelines, her ponytail still, her eyes fixed on Keanu's calm. He's ready, she whispered to Lisa, who nodded. Sensing the shift, Jamal, the 15-year-old gym kid, bounced nearby, clutching his phone. Yo, K's gonna pull some ninja shit, Watchy said, his grin infectious, adding a spark of heart to the testosterone-charged air. Coach Elena, the 55-year-old ex-kickboxer, leaned against the wall, her buzz cut catching the light, her gut telling her this was no ordinary fight. The matchups rolled by, each one building the crowd's fever. Phones were out, tripods set, Live streams, humming. Finally. Coach Elena grabbed the mic, her voice cutting through the din. Ryan Turner versus K. Charles. Open division. The gym hummed, a low roar rising. Ryan cracked his neck, bouncing on his toes, his grin predatory. "Don't pull a muscle, old man," he taunted, loud enough for the back row to hear. Keanu stepped onto the mat, cap low, peeling off his hoodie to reveal a plain, gray compression shirt. He adjusted his 16-ounce gloves, worn, spotless relics, and exhaled through his nose. The ref, a grizzled ex-fighter, ran through the rules 3 minutes. Light contact. Ryan leaned in, whispering, "I'll make this quick. Pops. Gotta keep that heart rate under 120. Keanu's eyes flicked up, steady, unreadable. "Ready?" he said, voice like steel. The ref dropped his hand. "Begin," Ryan pounced. His 230-pound frame a blur of aggression, his signature style all flash and power. He opened with a feint, a jab darting toward Keanu's head, followed by a hard, low kick aimed at his thigh. Keanu didn't flinch. He slipped the kick. A half-inch dodge so subtle it looked accidental. The crowd murmured, Ryan's eyes narrowing. He pressed forward, swinging a massive hook, his full weight behind it. Keanu moved like water, his wrist grazing Ryan's, redirecting the punch into empty air. The gym held its breath. Ryan lunged again, grappling for a takedown, but Keanu pivoted, his foot hooking Ryan's ankle, his hip snapping forward. With a fluid shift of leverage, not force, Keanu sent Ryan crashing to the mat, a 230-pound thud echoing like a gavel. The crowd gasped, frozen, as Keanu's cap slipped, falling to the mat, revealing his face. Silence stretched, then shattered. "That's Keanu Reeves." A spectator near the back whispered, disbelief cracking his voice. Phones lit up, screens glowing, fingers flying across keyboards. "It's John Wick," another shouted, and the gym erupted into chaos. X posts exploded, with Umbriager's silent legend, the clip hitting 4 million views in 10 hours. Trending as fans debated, is Keanu the new Rocky Balboa? TikTokers zoomed in on the takedown. Flawless. Cinematic, like a scene from his films. Sarah's jaw dropped, her respect confirmed. Jamal whooped. "Told you." Ninja Grandpa Elena's eyes widened, her memory clicking a stuntman's face from a 90s fight reel. Ryan, sprawled on the mat, coughed, sweat pouring down his face. Not from effort, but from the weight of his miscalculation. Keanu stepped back. No smirk, no gloat. He offered a hand, his voice soft but clear. Balance over power. Ryan, stunned, stared at the hand like it was a mirror reflecting his own flaws. Then took it, pulling himself up. The gym didn't cheer. It held its breath, as if realizing it had mocked a legend. The viral moment sparked X debates about humility versus ego, with Weiger's silent legend trending alongside clips of Rocky running Philly's steps. Keanu's kindness, that quiet tip to Ryan, wasn't just a victory, it was a lesson, deeper than the original silence of his win. As phones kept rolling, capturing every angle, Iron Forge felt the weight of Philly's underdog spirit. A city that knew real strength didn't need a spotlight. The stage was set for a transformation, not just for Ryan, but for every fighter who'd laughed, watched, or wondered. The dust settled on Iron Forge MMA, but the echo of that crisp 55 DeGrom Saturday lingered, like a Philly sunrise breaking through the city's gritty haze. Keanu Reeves, known to the gym as K. Charles, vanished as quietly as he'd arrived, his worn black hoodie and scuffed training pants fading into the streets of South Philadelphia. Rumors swirled in the weeks that followed. Some said he was prepping for a John Wick sequel. His scar and Hollywood Fight Club gym bag, proof of a stuntman's life. Others whispered he was seeking personal peace, a man reclaiming his strength after a decade away from the mats. No one knew for sure, but his absence left a void, not of noise, but of presence. A reminder that true power doesn't shout, it resonates. The gym, once a cauldron of bravado, where 45-pound plates clashed louder than egos, began to shift. Its transformation, as subtle yet profound as Keanu's half-inch dodge in the ring. Ryan Blaze Turner, the 230-pound champ who'd ruled Iron Forge with a roar, returned a changed man, 15 pounds lighter, his custom rash guard swapped for a plain tee. He moved through the gym with a quieter step. The insecurity that once fueled his taunts had cracked under the weight of Keanu's lesson balance over power. Ryan found Jamal, the 15-year-old gym kid with a grin brighter than the fluorescent lights, and began coaching him on jabs, his voice soft, patient. "Keep your feet light, like K did," he said, the name slipping out with a reverence that surprised even himself. Jamal, eyes wide, soaked it in, his hero worship shifting from Ryan's flash to Keanu's calm. Sarah, the 130-pound bantamweight, trained harder than ever, her punches sharper, inspired by the man who'd shown her that strength wasn't in the spotlight, but in the work. Her dream of going pro felt closer, fueled by a Philly grit that Keanu's presence had rekindled. The gym's culture, once defined by Ryan's showmanship, softened. The playlist swapped Kanye's hype for smoother rhythms, less bass, more breath, like the city exhaling after a fight. A plaque appeared near the entrance, nailed beside the faded 2008 Rocky Balboa poster. "Strength is silent. K. Charles." Jamal, with a kid's earnestness, hung Keanu's black baseball cap beside it, its frayed brim a Philly relic, like a piece of the Liberty Bell. New fighters touched it for luck, asking, "Who's K?" Charles old-timers, like Coach Elena, just smiled, their silence a nod to a legend who'd walked among them. Elena, the 55-year-old ex-kickboxer, found a 1990s stunt reel online one night, grainy footage of Keanu sparring with pros, his scar catching the light. She leaned back, her buzz cut glinting, and smiled. "Knew it," she muttered, her respect for the quiet fighter sealed. Ryan's redemption was the gym's heartbeat. Months later, he posted on X Meta Legend. "Learned my place." Silent legend. The post went viral, racking up thousands of retweets, fans praising his humility in a city that revered underdogs. The hashtag, born from the 4 million view clip of Keanu's takedown, sparked debates about ego versus grace, with users comparing Keanu to Rocky Balboa, a man who fought not for glory, but for truth. The gym became a pilgrimage site for local fighters, drawn by the story of a man who'd flipped a 230-pound champ and left without a word. Iron Forge wasn't just a gym anymore. It was a mirror, reflecting what happened when you looked beyond the noise. The lessons were deeper than strength. Keanu's silence taught humility. Real power doesn't need a flex. His kindness, offering Ryan a hand and a tip, showed that victory could lift others, not crush them, a value etched into Philly's soul, where comeback stories like Rocky's thrive. Sarah learned resilience, pushing past doubt to chase her pro dream. Jamal found purpose, his goofy ninja grandpa quips hiding a kid learning to believe in himself. Ryan's arc, from brash champ to quiet coach, proved redemption was possible when ego gave way to growth. These truths, woven into the gym's new rhythm, echoed America's love for second chances, for underdogs who rose not by shouting, but by standing firm. To you, the audience, thank you for walking this Philly tale with us. Your support fuels stories like this, where legends hide in plain sight, and lessons hit harder than a 16-ounce glove. We're grateful for every view, every comment, every moment you've shared this journey. If you believe in silent strength, in the underdog spirit that defines this city, hit that subscribe button and join our channel. Let's keep telling stories that spark change, one fight at a time, Drop your city and silent legend below. Would you cheer for the loud champ or spot the quiet legend first Philly's watching? And maybe Keanu is too. This story isn't just about a fight, it's about what happens when you strip away the noise. Keanu didn't need to prove himself. He showed Iron Forge how to see Ryan's ex-post, Sarah's drive, Jamal's cap on the wall, their proof that one moment can shift a gym, a city, a life. In Philadelphia, where Rocky's steps still inspire, Keanu's legacy lingers. A reminder that strength is silent, but its echo is deafening. So, what's your takeaway? Is it humility, kindness, or the courage to keep going when no one believes you can share your thoughts? And let's keep the harsh, silent legend alive. Thank you, from the heart of Philly, for being part of the story. Subscribe, comment, and let's make more legends together.